This podcast episode is brought to you by Coors Light. These days, everything is go, go, go. It's nonstop hustle all the time. Work, friends, family expect you to be on 24/7. Well, sometimes you just need to reach for a Coors Light because it's made to chill. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged. It's as crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. It is literally made to chill. Coors Light is the one I choose when I need to unwind. So when you want to hit reset, reach for the beer that's made to chill. Get Coors Light in the new look delivered straight to your door with Drizzly or Instacart. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. I'm your host, Ben Burnett. Joining me, your other host, Louis Ezekiel. Louis, we need to start out by addressing the elephant in the room. There is no longer any chance of an all Short Shifts hosts patron or tier 1 of the Cupful championship. You unfortunately fell to Marcus this week. No shame in that. Friend of the podcast from the Stat Attack podcast. I'm in deep against our pal Elon this week, and honestly, I'm a little bummed out that we don't have a chance of meeting up once again.
Well, my bummed out beats your bummed out, but no, I feel, one thing that's been nice about it, the strangest thing about it is that I feel like it's been an age since we've recorded. I think time is just moving slower when I'm not like actively tuned in to my fantasy team in the Cupful. I've still got, other leagues going, but they don't capture my heart and my attention in the same way. Mm-hmm. And it just has seemed like it's been a really long time since we've recorded, which was curious to me. Marcus played an outstanding game. He had, his depth guys were all so good. And in a small sample size, I'm going to take the Evander Kane approach and say, look, we're not going to make excuses like the fact that in a very small sample size, Dmitry Orlov can greatly outscore Adam Fox. So, these things just happen, and I'm very impressed by Marcus's performance, and he's off to, I haven't checked the score lately, but anyway, rooting for you, certainly, as you head forward. I know you're up against Elon, so maybe it's blasphemy to say, but I'm rooting for you, bud. I hope you win, and just very excited to watch these playoffs unfold, and, I'm relaxing a little bit now. I'm enjoying my 5th place match, which, as you have pointed out, means basically nothing, but yeah, we're just cruising on into the finals here. Watching you guys have your really exciting matches up there among the final 4.
I feel bad now for saying that your 5th place matchup is not exciting. It's hey buddy, it's still good.
I don't need your pity support. As I expressed before, I am a competitive person, and I appreciate the opportunity to be competitive one more time. I actually didn't realize there was a 5th place match, and luckily I had gone through and set all my lines in the case of advancing, because I could have ended up with a ton of bench players, and that would have, again, meant nothing, but it would have been unfortunate in my quest to finish in the finals in the same place that I finished the season in the Cupful, or in Tier 1.
Well, Louis, if it makes you feel better, while you were talking about that, Igor Shesterkin gave up 2 goals. So here we are. Let's move on. Let's get into the show. We'll hop right over to Colorado, where we get to talk about, guess what? COVID-19. Everybody's, when this season's over, don't you think we're all going to look back and just be like, God, remember the good old days where random players would be catching life-threatening diseases as we moved through the season? What a great time it is to be playing fantasy hockey.
You've got your condensed season. You've got your Rupe Hintzes, who are just a game time decision every game for the whole season. You got people dropping out unexpectedly. It has been a wild one. It has challenged our ability to think on our feet. It has challenged our ability to be calm and maintain our zen in the face of problems that are wildly out of our control. But let's talk about some of the things that at least we can control now that we know we have COVID in its, rearing its ugly head here in Colorado. We know Mikko Rantanen has tested positive. and it's going to be out for a while here. We don't even know if Colorado will be able to return this week. This is going to play a role in people's fantasy playoffs here.
Well, actually, I don't know that we've got confirmation that Rantanen has tested positive, but he was added to the COVID-19 list. The interesting thing is that the Avs had their games canceled last week, and we still hadn't seen a new positive pop up just yet. So this does seem a little bit concerning that Rantanen could have tested positive within or several days after the team ostensibly would have been sent home to self-isolate after the other positive test with Donskoy and Grubauer. So I just don't know, like, how could you gamble on the Avs returning on Thursday at this point? I would be staying away and not leaning into streaming one of those players.
Yeah, so hopefully their opponent is going to be St. Louis, so hopefully you were already sort of shying away from them as streamer options since they weren't going to play until Thursday. But, there's not a ton of St. Louis players that I would necessarily be desperate to hold on to if we are in a situation where it looks like you could squeeze an extra few games out of a different player by making a swap on Wednesday when you are likely to hear this episode. So that would be something that would be definitely in my mind. Like we said, this is the part of the season where everything is condensed, everything, the impact is magnified. So I might be thinking about jettisoning some Blues or some Avs as we move forward here. I had Grubauer in a keeper. And I'm trying to, I'm not looking to necessarily keep someone if it's going to potentially cost me a shot at a title. So I jettisoned him as soon as I heard the news that he was going to be out for a couple weeks. And that's the mindset that I come into these playoffs with.
Yeah, I think that it is tough once you get into keeper considerations, but I tend to be a little bit more conservative myself. But I think in a limited keeper, keep 3, keep 4. There are very few players who I'm going to keep if they're not going to be there for the playoffs, unless, assuming that we're talking about even options, then I'm happy to cut somebody if they're going to not be there, and I'm also not going to keep them. Let's go over to Florida next, where a couple of things to talk about, a bunch of new additions to the Florida Panthers team. Let's start in nets, where Spencer Knight is having his debut up against the Columbus Blue Jackets, currently 30 for 31 on the evening. He did allow a goal that should have stood, but Columbus stupidly went offside. Pretty good start for Spencer Knight. Of course, that is a jam-packed crease in Florida. I would have to assume, they're gonna stick with Bobrovsky for 50% of the starts. Do you think that Knight eats into more than this? Do you think that he's going to stick around, or are we looking at a 3-headed monster? I can't handle any more. The Carolina one is enough for me.
Yeah, this is an interesting decision to kind of give Knight a chance to show what he's got. I wonder why now. I'd be interested in sort of hearing what the thought process was. It seems like they're kind of throwing a monkey wrench into the gears here as they head into the playoffs. That being said, he's obviously performing very nicely in this debut. For, the Florida Cerberi, I think we're going to call them, since we're delving into our 3-headed monster lore here. I think this is interesting, but I think you make a good point, is that this really seems to be more of a drag on Dreger's value than it is a great benefit for either of them. I think it is too risky to assume that there's going to be a whole lot of starts for either of the sort of 1B, really 2 options. If Bobrovsky is going to take charge and, gear up and get ready for the playoffs. They're, like you said, probably half the games if the other 2 stick around, maybe 60-40 if they don't. I do think this is just kind of an odd one. I don't know what to make of it. I'm a little bit lost for commentary here, because I just am surprised they're in first place. Why are you mucking around with things? If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, I think it's just like Carolina, but also a situation they chose to create for themselves. I'm assuming that they're just trying to give Spencer Knight a little bit of pro seasoning. What is he, draft year +1? Or I don't think that I think he was part of that 2019 class. So maybe just trying to give him a little bit of experience here. At the worst case scenario, I would think it would be a Carolina situations where, Bobrovsky's in the Mrazek spot where he's getting every other start, and then they might alternate between Reimer and Nedeljkovic, or in this case, Knight and Drieger. But yeah, it's something to watch, and definitely there is value in grabbing a spot start from one of those Florida Panthers goaltenders. Let's talk about the forwards next, though, because there were two marquee ads. I guess marquee in the NHL is very different from marquee ads in the NBA, for example, where you might see a superstar get traded, but in the NHL, Sam Bennett and Nikita Gusev are, 80% of what we ever get. But looking at the paper, you would think, all right, Nikita Gusev, line 1, power play 1, let's go. Just 2 points in 4 games so far. That game is still continuing, so that may be out of date. But from line 2, power play 2, Sam Bennett has been unbelievable. 5 points in 3 games since joining the Panthers, playing with Duclair and Huberdeau. Duclair also on a hot streak with 6 points in that stretch. Huberdeau also cleaning up, but I mean, when is Jonathan Huberdeau not cleaning up? So that one is, just that's as it goes, steady as it goes for Hubie. What do you make of this deal in Florida? Would you take Bennett above Gusev, even though he's not even on the top power play unit?
So, a few things to mention here. First off, I think you asked sort of why is this happening a little bit. I think that this is, a chance for Duclair and for Bennett really to play with the best player they've ever had the opportunity to get on a line with. And obviously there's this instant chemistry, at least for the time being. I mean, Florida is playing great. The really one of the big surprises of the season, I think, after the offseason that they had, where people thought they gave away a fair amount of talent, and here they are at the top of their division, just crushing it. I guess I am of a mind where I usually would say it's the guy with the deployment, right? Take the line 1, power play 1 guy. That's who you want to have. But we've talked about, how the season shrinks, as you look towards the end of it here. And I think you want to stick with the hot hand. Bennett has obviously found something that really works between himself and Duclair and Huberdeau. And I think for the next couple weeks here, as the fantasy playoffs wrap up, I would guess that Bennett is going to score more. Stick with the guy who's really performing. He seems to be enjoying his time since his trade. Gusev, is a guy who has been a bit of an enigma. Obviously very talented, but he hasn't been able to put it all together. And he's been the kind of guy who has lost the faith of his coaches. And if he's not able to produce in that line 1, power play 1 spot, how long is he really going to hold it for? The one big advantage that he has is that we just saw Hornquist went out, and that maybe delays, a potential for some things to get moved around and maybe to lose a potential spot in the lineup in terms of deployment. But give me Bennett right now over, give me Bennett or Duclair right now over Gusev.
Huh. I think Duclair is a step too far for me, but I do agree that Bennett in, a bangers league where you're getting points for hits and shots, then yeah, I think that Gusev is kind of that empty calorie guy. You're going to get an assist. I mean, what we think he can be is an empty calorie assist player, whereas with Sam Bennett, you're going to get the back end stuff. He's kind of like a Hornquist, actually, and playing above him, as you mentioned right now. Even before Hornquist went out, he was bumped down to line 3, and Sam Bennett took the spot on line 2 with Duclair and Huberdeau. So yeah, I think in the short term, I agree. I think the only spot where I kind of my strategy differentiates from what you were describing was that I think in the long term, it's just really hard for me to bet on a line 2 power play 2 guy outperforming the guy on line 1 power play 1. So I would say I would hedge and say, yeah, give me Bennett for tonight, Thursday night. Sure. I'm going to reassess after that though, just because I don't know how sustainable it is to keep on scoring goals, especially for a guy like Sam Bennett, who doesn't have the same reputation as Nikita Gusev does to be an offensive contributor in the long term. So I love the hot streak. I'm riding it while it's rolling, but I just don't know that I trust it to continue long term.
I'm not worried about long term, man. It's all short term from here on out. That's my thing. That's my approach.
You're definitely right. I just when you say a few weeks down the road, that's where where I'm like, maybe I would hold a little bit off from getting that far ahead of myself, but definitely I don't disagree with you. Otherwise, it's very much it's very much something where we are at the end of the season. If I had to bet on one of them from now until the end of next week, I don't think that it's I don't think that you'd be crazy for going with Bennett at all. I can see why you would say that for sure. Coming up, we will talk about a couple of injuries and outjuries. You're listening to Short Shifts.
Like any good team, hiring the right employees for your front office is just as important as recruiting the best players for the game. That's why you need Indeed. Indeed is the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3. Post, screen, and interview all on Indeed. Get your quality shortlist of candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description faster. Only pay for the candidates that meet must-have qualifications, and schedule and complete video interviews in your Indeed dashboard. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. Get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. Lewis, let's go to Boston next, where Matt Grzelcyk returned from another injury. Brian mentioned he has definitely begun to meet the qualifications to be considered a Band-Aid boy. I was a little bit concerned as a Matt Grzelcyk manager because Mike Riley fit in so nicely on that top unit in his first couple games in Boston. He put up 2 assists in the 4 games that he was on that top unit, but he also filled out the categories with 13 shots and 7 hits across those 4 games. Tonight, Matt Grzelcyk's back. He hops right back on that top power play unit and doesn't stop Mike Riley from pocketing a secondary assist on a Brad Marchand goal in the first period. Is Mike Riley a drop or a hold now that Grzelcyk's back?
So Riley has basically looked like a peripherals guy who's going to get you some assists. He was on a very nice run of assists after he left, or when he was in Ottawa still, and has 3 assists in 5 games since he's been in Boston, and I think that's quite appealing. Obviously, he was getting some nice power play minutes that have vanished now. I think if you liked Mike Riley in Ottawa, you should certainly like him in Boston. Both teams have decent offenses, where we've been impressed, I think, with the number of goals Ottawa has been able to score. I think you look at it basically as a side grade now that he is off of that front line. I think he's certainly droppable, but, he's worth holding on to if those category fillers have been beneficial for you and you like a guy who can give you a point here and there. But check out your options along the waiver wire. There's certainly other interesting and appealing players, but yeah, I don't mind Riley. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. I have the same level of interest now as I did when we talked about him on that hot run of assists in Ottawa.
I think that's pretty much dead on. I guess the one thing with Riley right now, and we're all about the short term, as you mentioned, Boston has an excellent schedule this week, so I'm probably going to hold on just because if he's already on my roster, I'm not going to waste a roster move for somebody who I'm going to get 3 more games out of this week. But I would be more hesitant to run to the waiver wire now that it's become clear Grzelcyk's going to be on that top power play unit. The one thing I will say, or I'll call back to, is that Grzelcyk has struggled with injuries, so I would keep my eye on Mike Riley even as I drop him blissfully back into the waiver wire. Let's go to a rival of the Boston Bruins in Montreal. Carey Price, back from injury for just 1 period, and then he's triggered into the concussion protocol, out at least a week. Jake Allen back in the starters net after a relatively uneventful turn after Carey Price's hand injury. Lewis, what are your thoughts here on Jake Allen? I know I called him, or I said that he might be able to go on a bit of a Jack Campbell run a couple weeks back on the show. And it turns out that was a sign that both of them are bad, because both of them have been kind of bad since I said that. Do you think that Jake Allen has anything here?
I mean, it's a good opportunity. You're not going to have to be wondering about when he's going to play. He's going to get this game upcoming against Edmonton, almost certainly. And then we'll get one of the 2 games against Calgary. It also means that Caden Primo, if he is an interesting option to you, will get one of those games as well. I worry a little bit just because I think that, the Edmonton players really owe their managers, who are only getting 2 games out of them this week, to really blow the doors off of whoever they play in the one game or in the couple games that they've got. Which, if true, would be obviously bad for Allen. I think I would take it if I was desperate. I don't love the matchups. Calgary is fine as an opponent. They have kind of been able to blow people up and also maybe not produce so much in other games. It's been kind of interesting. I will say it's been nice to have kind of the traditional scorers in Calgary doing a little bit more lately. I am lukewarm on this Allen ad. I think if I need goalie starts, he certainly could do a lot worse. But I don't like that Edmonton matchup, and Calgary is a bit of a coin flip for me.
I'm not even sure that we'll see Primo. I think that the thing to like about Jake Allen is that the Habs may be willing to start him on that both sides of that back-to-back. So if you wanted to chase volume, I think you could do worse. Speaking of volume, Lewis, I actually have to bring this up, and it's not in our show notes, but last night I asked you about if I should try and get in on the Dustin Tokarski experiment in Buffalo, and you kind of convinced me to step back because he was going up against Boston tonight. He's got Boston 2 more times this week, although one of them is a back-to-back, and it does look like Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen will get one half of that back-to-back potentially, which would be exciting. But Dustin Tokarski tonight, 39 saves on 41 shots against. He now has, put together a little bit of a run here on a Buffalo team that we had all sort of left for dead. I gotta know, Dustin Tokarski, are you starting to believe?
It's so bizarre to me. Honest to God, he was out of the league for years. And it's a great story to have him come in and play as well as he has, to be able to lead this ragtag group of leftovers to some degree of success here. I'm impressed.
Quality starts. I have to interject. 5 straight quality starts against playoff level opponents.
So here's what I'll say, because I still feel like the Sabres are a fraud. Like, they are performing above what they really are capable of at this stage with this roster, with Eichel out, with Hall now gone. Obviously wasn't doing much for them anyway, but with Montour gone, who is scoring for them, I just feel like they can't actually be as good as they've been. But if you are in a league where you have saves as a category, or if you get nice points for saves and that kind of volume is useful for you, look, he's going to get starts. We'll see some Ukko-Pekka a little bit, I'm sure. But like we said, why not? This is the time to experiment with giving a goalie, some opportunity to show what he's got. I don't know if Florida is really in that position, as I was complaining about earlier. I think he can be useful if saves are valuable to you and you are willing to take a risk with your rates, because sooner or later he's going to have a bad game. He can't, these 5 quality starts. I feel like a guy who was out of the league that long, it's shocking that he's done as well as he has, and I feel like he is riding a wave that is not going to continue forever.
Yeah, I mean, no goalie is going to be good forever. There's many songs written about that. Dustin Tokarski, though, it's, you know what? I'm going to make the comparison. I couldn't decide if I was going to go for it or not, but he's the Sam Bennett of goaltenders. Like, that this isn't who he is. He's not going to score 82 goals in 82 games, but you're trying to ride the wave because we're in a short, condensed season here. There's 8 days left or whatever, 10 days left. Why not Dustin Tokarski?
I'll say this. I wish we had swapped him out for Drieger, because I didn't know that Drieger was going to lose that start tonight. So there's that, at least. That is the extent to which I will admit my wrongheadedness about this so far. But maybe by the time I come back on Thursday or a week from today, I'll truly have a big heaping crow to eat.
Well, I think in fairness to you, you wanted to keep Mike Smith. I forced us to switch to Chris Drieger because he stole a start from Bob last week. And the answer was we should have either stayed with Smith, and we should have stayed with Smith and then switched to Tokarski. But nobody cares about our fantasy team, Lewis, and that's why we should probably call it for this episode. For myself, Ben Burnett, signing out of here. Lewis, thank you for hanging out with me, and tell the folks about some fun links they can check out.
All right. Absolutely will do. Thank you, as always, so much for joining us, especially here as the season wraps up. We hope that you are doing awesome in your leagues. Please be sure to give us a follow at Short Shifts KK. Brian and Elon you can find at Keeping Carlson. And, of course, join Dave Benton of the Stream Scheme at NHL Stream Scheme. Please visit the great sites that we research our episodes with at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Natural Stat Trick, and Cacupful.com. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.